And with me now is David Macdonald, the author of the report and senior economist with the Centre for Policy Alternatives in Canada. Thank you very much for being here with us, sir.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.
So how much has the wage gap between top CEOs and the average worker widened over the years?
Yeah, CEOs have always been paid more than the average worker, but it's the gap that has really grown substantially. As far as we can tell, in the 1980s, CEOs made about 50 times what the average worker made. In the 1990s, it was about 100 times. When we started tracking this in the early 2000s, it was about 150 times. And now we're closing in on 250 times. And so what that goes to show is that while CEOs and average workers have both made increases in pay over that period, the CEOs' increase in pay have been much more substantial, particularly since the 1980s.
Why has CEO pay grown so much faster than regular workers' wages?
Well, CEO pay is largely made up of bonuses. So 84% of CEO pay is bonuses in some form. It's not salary. In fact, the salary for the top CEOs has been fairly stagnant over the period that we've studied it back to the early 2000s. What's happening here is that when companies do well, the CEO sees huge expansion in their bonuses, and companies have been doing very well since the pandemic. A lot of folks are seeing the price of almost everything go up. Well, that money goes somewhere, and one of the important places that it has gone is big increases in corporate profits. CEO bonuses are often based to some degree on corporate profits, and so as inflation drives corporate profits drive CEO bonuses, and that's one of the reasons why we're seeing this huge explosion in CEO pay.
It feels so unfair when so many are just struggling to put food on the table amid so much inflation and uncertainty. Are there changes to corporate rules or taxes that you would like to see?
Well, certainly in the periods where there was a lot less inequality between CEOs and the average worker, tax rates on CEO income were much higher than they are today. In fact, the taxes that we levy on very high incomes in Canada are a fair amount lower than they were in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Canada. And so one of the things that we could do is have a millionaire's tax, where if you're making over $1 million a year in income, you pay a slightly higher tax rate as a result to help to fund the things that Canadians desperately need, things like better emergency rooms, for instance, or better infrastructure. I think it's also worth continuing to consider a wealth tax. As you pay someone a lot more every single year, well, that builds up over time into a wealth gap that's even more substantial than what we see in terms of the income gap. It's not something that we've implemented here in Canada, a wealth tax, but it's certainly something to continue to consider.
All right, David, thank you very much for this. Appreciate this time with you today.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. That's David Macdonald, senior economist with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives.